Sex is the greatest gift from God to every living being, including man and animals. And now you're going to talk to me about Jesus. I believe in Jesus too, but Jesus was not a gift. Salvation is not a gift. Salvation is a price that you pay the price of believing in Jesus to get. This is why unless you believe in Jesus, you can't have it. But sex is a gift that every living being has, regardless of if you believe in Jesus or not. You have access to sex because it is a gift freely given to every living being. Nobody tells you how to use it. God never tells you how to have sex because it is a gift, a free gift. You can't do anything you like with Jesus. Jesus tells you how to live. So that cannot be a gift. Jesus is not your gift. Sex is the greatest gift God ever gave to mankind. When you talk about sex education, it is not just about teaching people how to have sex. What about sex transmutation? The act of saving your sex energy for creative effort. It means that you are transferring what you could have used to start sleeping around with people into some creative effort. That is still sex education. But in this part of the world, because of the way they have been biasly educated about sex, they feel like when you talk about sex education, this guy must be from the devil. So they told us that you should not have sex before marriage, and you start teaching about sex even though you are not married and wondering, what is wrong with you? But of course, I can't blame them. I can't blame them because they are a product of the education they have been exposed to. And the education is that sex should not be mentioned in public. It is a subject that should never be discussed publicly. Even in normal writing, you still have to write sex and still star some part of the words. But you write the word mother, murderer, and you don't star any part of the word. Why sex? Because everybody has been so used to the conspiracy of silence and prohibition. And the conspiracy of silence doesn't help, because the more you want people to keep silent about this subject, the more they want to know about it. So what education are you putting out there for the people to have concerning this so-called sacred subject? What about sex transmutation? What about sex attractions and their usage? What about the fact that sex attraction is even more important to marriage than beauty? Who teaches you that if you have to keep quiet about the subject? The idea is simple. The people who hold the power to dictate to you how to live your life do not know so much about sex. So the best way to keep their power is to tell you, don't talk about it. Because the more you talk about it, the more you discuss it, the more you have questions, and they do not have answers to these questions. So they have to tell you, don't talk about it. They make it look like it's a crime to talk about sex, but it is not. It doesn't matter how you talk about it. It is never a crime to talk about sex. It is never a sin either. But you find out that people cringe when you talk about sex. They feel like, what are you talking about? I mean, this is what everybody does. The level of hypocrisy is high concerning sex, because sex is what everybody does, and it is what everybody do not want to talk about, and everybody just want to appear sex-free. When God made man, he said, increase and multiply. 98 or 99.9% of the people that were given birth to in the world to fulfill the order, if it is an order to multiply, comes through sex. Without sex, we would not have billions of people in the world. It means that without sex, life is impossible. The scientists have discovered other ways of procreation. But you see, the safest of all of them is sex. And people only resort to this scientific method of creation when the first method through sex fails. So tell me, is that not the greatest gift ever given? Sex has four major potentialities that a lot of people do not know. One, procreation of mankind. Two, maintenance of health. Three, as a source of enjoyment. And four, the creation of genius through sex transmutation. So you have to be open-minded whenever the topic of sex is discussed. Stop acting as if you were not born through sex. 95% of everything you do in life involves sex. And unless you know how to manage it, you will fail. If you want to get married, does it involve sex or not? Some of you, even if you go to your workplace and your boss is asking you out, you have to know how to manage that to get the job. You don't have to do what he wants, but you have to know how to manage it to either get the job or be sent packing. So everywhere you go, there is sex displayed in your face. It means you can hardly live your life without sex. So sex is the drive for the majority of things. Sex determines nearly 100% of everything you do in life. The reason a lot of people fail is because they have poor sex education. I started living at the age of 24. And what happened at the age of 24 was that I came across the right sex education, which changed my life forever. It felt as if the genius within my brain was unlocked. After that time, I've gone on to write more than 30 books, created several courses, affected different lives in different parts of the world. But that happened because I had the freedom that comes with the right sex education. Not having the right sex education is like putting yourself in bondage. If 95% of the things you do in your life have sex in them, how do you live your life without the right education about sex and succeed? Whoever controls the sex education you have controls your life. This is why you find fake religion leaders popularize fake sex education. It is always about sex. It is always about sex. They make it look as if it's the worst sin you could ever commit. Have you never heard about that? It felt as if sex or those things called sex-related sins are the worst sins you can ever commit. When in religion you hear immorality, immorality is not talking about killing, it's not talking about stealing, it's not talking about every other thing, it's talking about all those activities that involve sex. So how could these sins, if they were sins, actually be worse than killing, be worse than idolatry? But they make them look like they are the worst sins you can ever commit. Why do you think that is? Because it gives them power, not God. It moves you closer to them, not God. Many cunning religion leaders know this. So they try to manipulate you sexually. Some of you are married, they tell you, don't do this with your husband. If you want to fast, don't have sex with your husband, this and that. Who told you that you can't even talk to God while you're having sex? Who told you that? Who told you that you having sex with your husband is a dirty act in the sight of God? But you are made to believe that so that you can come closer to these religion leaders and be farther from God, while you are thinking that you're actually closer to God. I had this poor sex education that made me believe that anytime I masturbated, God was always away from me. And I struggled. You know, the worst thing about my struggle was that I was far away from God. Guess what? God was never far away from me. It was just my thought pattern. It was just the bad sex education that I had that made me believe that God was away from me anytime I did that. God was not away. I was. My conscience was judging me and putting me away from God. What created that conscience was the bad sex education that I was exposed to. God is not going to throw you to hell because you have sex. Sex is a gift from God, but it can destroy you depending on how you manage it. It has nothing to do with Satan. It has more to do with you and not being able to manage what you have. You can have the best gift in the world and it will still destroy you if you don't know how to manage it properly. So instead of people to learn how to manage their sex urge and their sexual activities, they blame Satan for it. Satan never comes after you. There is no demon. I didn't pray to overcome masturbation, yet I overcame it. Why? Because I acquired the right sex education. I listened to one guy who said that anytime that a man masturbates, an angel dies. And I'm wondering, where the hell did you hear that? Those are some of the nonsense you are told in the realm of religion about sex. It talks about a demon called masturb, that the demon is the one that makes you to masturbate. It is a lie. There is no masturb, there is no demon, there is nothing. Masturbation comes as a result of your mental picture, imagination. If you are a person that masturbates very well, it shows that you have keen imagination. This is where you need sex transmutation, because that keen imagination is a tool for creative activities, but you are wasting it in form of masturbation. You see, what you need is not prayer. What you need is not deliverance. What you need is the right knowledge to help you to understand that instead of putting the women that you are wishing that you have sex with in your imagination and mixing it up that makes you masturbate, you have to put the right information in there. It will be mixed up and turn out to be a great invention. That is sex transmutation. It took me 6 years to write my book titled How to Become a Genius Through Sex. It will be in the link below. You can get it and try to read it. It's a book that everyone needs to read. It's enlightening. There is no way you read that book and your life will never change. It's going to change. As you are reading, it will be as if somebody is performing surgery in your brain. You begin to see things the way you ought to see them. Remember that I said whoever controls the sex education you are exposed to controls 95% of your life. So you see, when you read that book, you will begin to gain freedom, mental freedom, which leads to your physical freedom. I got my freedom to become the genius in me after the age of 24. Before then, I was this timid guy who could not make decisions. I was this guy who would cry before making any decision. After that time, I became a decisive beast. I became a genius. I mean, that happened because I was exposed to the right sex education. Let not the thought of the physical expression of sex bias your mind. It is broad. There are lots you need to know. So you will be doing yourself a great favor to expose yourself to the right sex education. If you want to find the worst form of sex education, go into religion. But if you want the right one, come to me. Sex education is as important as your basic education, because without it, you might never reach your true potentials.